them our best toys. They give us their scientists, they give us prototypes, and they teach the interplanetary corporate conglomerate how to build stuff.
So see, we're the gas station of the galaxy, right? We're the quick stop. We are the hub.
Works out for everybody.
All the creepy messages and phone numbers written on the wall and the little glory holes of that gas
So
station.
speaking of glory holes, yes, because of our wormhole, our black hole, they probably do call it. They call it our glory hole because they can. Like you said, through the arm of our galaxy, there's this black hole, and of course, black holes. They're just like they're just shortcuts, like to go wherever you want. They don't just like completely disintegrate everything that goes inside. They're little.
They're building a black hole right now so that I don't have to drive 22 miles to work. Just do a little shortcut through there.
So planet Earth is the G spot you hit every time.
Yeah, hell yeah. They're like, hey, if you want to really have a good time. But isn't this reminding you too of like what we were talking about?
Hole?
There it is.
There we go.
I didn't even think about that clip. About what we were talking about with Matt R. and how I think it was with him when we were saying that they are kind of they all talk with each other and exchange ideas with each other. These different aliens and forms and everything. I just didn't realize that we were the hot G spot. That's really. I feel special.
Yeah, they've given us scientists and technology and everything just for the right to come through. All right, these are advanced civilizations. If they do exist, I don't know why they feel that
they don't need us.
Solar Warden and the ICC are all this threat. But wait, there's another secret space program also. Tell us about it, Dave.
Oh God.
Then we have GGLN, or the Global Galactic League of Nations. Now, what this appears to be is kind of a throwaway that was given to the other leaders of the other countries on Earth. So you have people from all different major countries on Earth, all the European countries, even some of the African countries. You got people from India in there. You got lots of Latinos. Okay, all the different major races on Earth are represented in GGLN, and they have one major place that they all go. They wear their flag of whatever country they came from. They all go to this one planet, which is outside our solar system. And there's a reception area where everybody goes that has this weird pool. It's like a pond that has a waterfall going into it, and people are swimming in there, and it's got this weird blue light coming out of it. And they have announcements that are always going in English, and it kind of looks strange. I think there's 2 moons in the sky, too.
Okay.
Okay.
Whoa.
Yes.
Just tack that on at the end. And by the way, we're on Tatooine. Like you can't do that, dude.
Yeah. You said a twin sons.
No, if I may, when I was doing a little bit of research on this guy, right, I watched him do some interview, right? And he said that when he started out, and I don't know if this is jumping the gun, but when he started out, like he was having dreams about aliens and that kind of stuff. And then he saw Star Wars. And then he started having dreams that, he was the alien that was contacting him was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh,
and
my
when
Jesus.
Obi-Wan Kenobi died, he actually went into this vast universe and became a spiritually part of the universe. So basically, I think this guy might just be a little bit obsessed with Star Wars.
Yeah.
God, I can't
Which I'm
imagine.
okay with. And the thing that he's describing is pretty awesome. It sounds like, wow, I like the idea of this, an actual United Nations that works, and it makes me feel safe. I'm like, okay, the governments here can go to hell, but we have a cool space government. But no, it's just Star Wars.
Some people just really like Star Wars.
Yeah, I love
Galactic
Star Wars.
Empire.
Yeah, I've heard that.
As he sits in a closet surrounded by all that Star Wars merchandise.
It's a good thing that the prequels didn't come out when he was a kid, because this would all probably make way more sense to him. All the different races, all this, So we're already on our 3rd secret space program. This is the GGLN. And I like how he emphasizes lots of Latinos, as if he's like, wink, wink.
It's just, buenos dias, you're not being left out.
You know what I mean? Lots of Latinos. So, yeah, he talks about like how they hang out on some planet with a pool, and there might be 2 moons, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, he'll talk about them more later, but Wilcox goes on to tell us how advanced technology really is, and how we are not in Star Wars times. And yes, Brendan, I did see that in his youth that Star Wars was a big thing on him, but man, there's so much about this guy. Man, this will be a 5-hour show. But let's hear how we're not actually in Star Wars times. He jumps franchises. He tells us how we are actually in Star Trek times. Ooh.
We're all already in a Star Trek society. We already have the toys. We already have replicators and materializers. You can think of the best meal you ever had in your life, and it'll make it for you just like that. And they do need some organic materials to make that work. One of the things they use is actually butter oil. But they found that one of the best things to make food with the replicators, believe it or not, is marijuana oil, hemp oil.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the future, weed will be a much more prolific crop, and you can basically 3D print any type of meal that you want out of marijuana oil. And I guess they take the THC out. Otherwise, nobody'd get anything done.
Wait, what year was
Your
this?
farts would be very intoxicating.
Whoa!
All right. So
every time I thought the clip was over, it kept going. I'm so sorry.
This is our first clue into his personality. And don't worry, Drea, we didn't stomp on it too much. Rob, play the next clip, which is possible soundboard material.
And your farts would be very intoxicating.
I don't know how that works. Just because you're eating food made of weed, I don't think that makes your farts intoxicating. And that's what he's saying.
Has he ever smoked before, ever, or had edibles? I don't think he knows how to get high. He's going around sniffing people's farts trying to get high.
I've never
I'm going to say he's definitely gotten high before, and because...
Smell it!
Oh, no.
What year was this taken from?
Did you smell it?
Did you toot?
So yes. So this, as serious as he tried to sound in those first few clips, okay, this is the guy we're dealing with, and you can get a little sense of his sense of humor and how farts are ridiculously funny, even in space. So
it almost reminds me of that one clip where he's like, and yes, Baskin-Robbins isn't the only one that has 31 flavors.
Oh, yeah.
When he tells the joke.
And yes, and there's more than 30. My apologies to Baskin-Robbins, but there's more than... He's like, and the farts are very intoxicating.
And my apologies to Baskin-Robbins. There's more than 31 flavors there.
Nice. On it.
I'd still say Wilcock got a few more laughs. It's so hard to tell him that, even where he is or what's going on. It sounds like he's in a room with 5 people, but that's the end of that thing. So since we have an idea of his personality, let's hear him with one of our favorite personalities, George Norrie.
He said, if I want to be on the radio someday, I really ought to start articulating all my sentences as if everything was going to be transcribed and I wanted it all to be perfect. And it took years of practice to get to the point where I'm now this silver-tongued soothsayer that I am.
Sharp-tongued silver-tongued soothsayer. So I got an email from our science advisor tonight, Richard C. Hoagland. And Richard's working on a program that has to do with space. And he says, when can we book this? And I said, Richard, let me tell you something. I've just done a couple shows about Mars over the last few weeks. And I've got David Wilcock on tonight, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but including the secret space program. I've got to push you on the back burner, and I'm saying this just to rib him, David. And he is going absolutely nuts. And he sends me back another email. Do you know how important this is, the significance of this story? And I said, yeah, I'll probably cover it with David tonight.
Oh, my God.
So the next time you talk to good old Richard C., just tell him hi.
Good old Richard C. Yeah, George. Hey, George isn't above giving a little rub to Hoagland, but the reason I'm playing this is what he's saying in the beginning. David Wilcock practiced dictating so he could write books without having to actually write, where he could dictate a book. So he is so silver sun-tongued, whatever the hell George Norrie said.
Silver sun pickups, yeah.
He is so good with speaking that everything he says is if it's going to be dictated and put down. So let's just remember that going forward, that he thinks out everything he says, and everything he says is on purpose. So overall, George may be a wuss, but let's listen as he goes in to Wilcock. That didn't sound right.
The secret space program.
Great.
I remember you were on my show several years ago, and you said you thought very soon ETs would be flanking President Obama with disclosure. That kind of disclosure. Hasn't happened yet.
Hey, I like feeling the hairs on the back of my neck stand up
I
a
know.
little bit. And
I got to call you on
it.
it.
A little roasted. It's like the Justin Bieber roast and the David Wilcock roast.
Yeah, no, that's better. You're better.
Hey, I think that would have happened, and there were 5 different groups that stood up to stop it. So when we're talking about the space program, I would say that there's some very intrinsic things that people should keep in mind, which is we're kicking the can around about stuff that happened like 60, 70 years ago. We're still covering Roswell. We're still covering Philadelphia experiment. What if, do you think the government's going to be intimidated by the fact that these guys got stuck in the hull of their ship when they tried to send them through a portal?
Not at all.
Come on.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Was he talking about the Montauk Project?
He totally dodges the question of. So evidently, for years and years leading up to 2012, Wilcock claimed that aliens would be flanking President Obama, and well, of course that didn't happen. So George gets a nice little rib in because he probably had him on 5 or 6 times, and he's building it up, and then it doesn't happen. So good on George for finally fucking going after somebody.
Got some balls now.
Some. This is still George Norrie. You heard him go, yeah, I like how they're like, he's like, oh, this is like the Justin Bieber roast. He's like, no, you're better. You're better than him.
Yeah, that was a little.
That was weird.
That was a little weird.
That was weird. Yeah,
so
being
why did
like,
he compare himself to Justin Bieber? That was weird too. Like, there's been plenty of roasts on not.
You guys have the same hairdo.
And he's saying real pretty.
Hey, thanks for bringing up his hairdo. Now, if you are not familiar with David Wilcock, he is a very weird-looking guy. I want to ask what you guys think he looks like. To me, he looks like a cross. Well, the hairdo looks like David Spade. He looks like if you cross David Spade with a gray alien, because he has a really big forehead, and you throw in just a little sprinkle of Jim Brewer in there in his face.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I was
so he
gonna
sounds
say,
like one of the a caricature off of the Venice Boardwalk.
I was gonna say when I started watching like live videos of him, I was like, this guy kind of has like a Bobcat like kind of twang, but he also reminds me of the dude from I can't remember his name, but he was in Something About Mary where he Ben Stiller picks him up and he's the 7-minute ab guy. He's like, no, not 6 minutes, 7 minutes. That's kind of who reminds me of when he's talking a little bit.
Very excitable. And super silver-tongued, might I add.
Yeah.
He's a silver-tongued sleuth, I think he called himself.
Oh, God. So keep in mind, especially with this next clip, that he knows everything he's saying. Everything he is saying is for a reason, all right? The point of his appearance on Coast to Coast was to talk about some new findings on the rings of Saturn. So let's hear about it.
I try to correlate what people are telling me with real-world data. So, for example, this guy who was Hoagland's insider said that we've gone out to the rings of Saturn, and what we find is gigantic rooms made out of a glass-like material that's all shattered, tumbling end over end in space, which they call ice crystals at NASA. And that when you go up to them in the ship, what you're seeing is rooms with chairs and consoles and windows and platforms built for people who are about 70 to 100 feet tall. And that's a big reveal right there.
70 to 100 feet tall?
Yeah, if you compared one of those people to somebody like you or me, then that would mean that our height compared to them would be the equivalent of maybe like somebody who's 6 inches tall. So they'd barely get above your ankles. So these people were enormous. In fact, I was coming off the hiking trail that I do today. I have several that I do. And I was watching these 2 girls walk ahead of me next to a giant telephone pole.
Sure you were.
And, yeah, I was doing this for scientific purposes.
Yes, exactly.
Even though they had, very, very nicely tight black sweatpants on, whatever. I wasn't paying attention.
Jesus Christ.
What?
All right.
Yo, George Norrie is in roast mode.
He is, and he walked
I
right
like it,
to it.
though.
All he had to do was say, I was watching these 2 girls. He's like, yeah, sure you were. And he's like, well,